Hey everybody, I'm going to give it just a second here so I can make sure I'm live. Sometimes I've had some technical issues where it seems like I am, but I'm actually really not. So bear with me for just a sec. I'm just making sure it's showing up on the page before I get started. All right, perfect. Here we are. So I am Stacy with New Creations by Stacy. I'm the owner and artist. Give me just a sec here. I'm having some issues. All right, perfect. So now I can see comments. I see a couple people on. Just say, hey, where you're watching from. I am an elite retailer here in Ardmore, Alabama at the Rustic Willow. I am also a retailer here in my Madison location still as well. So I've got my Facebook page, or you can click the link, just like and follow me on Facebook. And I also we did this top, I'm going to talk about this piece in a second, but we did the top of this Monday on the Dixie Belle Paint Company page. So if you do want to see that, I have that live on my page as well. But today we're actually going to be working with silk, and I'm going to talk about this here. We're going to go ahead and finish up the top with a satin coat of protectant over the Voodoo Gel stain. And then we're also going to work with the lace transfer if we have time, which we should. So on this piece, I had a little happy accident, like Bob Ross says. I was actually intending to paint it just Tide Pool, which is this beautiful kind of light green color. This is the silk paint. It's an all-in-one mineral paint, so that means it includes a stain blocker as well as a top coat. So I went ahead and I put one coat of that on here. I did scuff sand it first and clean it with White Lightning. I covered a lot of that in the video on Monday as well. So that was all the prep work. And then when I went to put the second coat on, because I wanted to have it ready for the transfer today, I accidentally had this sitting out as well. And so my second coat ended up being Serenity, which is this is what you see right here, and I love this. It's not really showing up on camera, but I'm actually getting a nice, subtle, layered look that really complements the layered top of this. So hopefully once I do the second coat on the whole thing, I'll be able to bring you in and you can maybe see how that's a little bit different than just having the silk in a solid color. So we're going to go ahead and start there. And actually, you guys got a pretty good view. If you guys have any questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be about this or the silk paint. Feel free to ask. And I mean, if I would miss any of the comments, you can definitely go ahead and message me on my page as well. So we're just going to go ahead, like I said, and put the second coat on here. So one of the things with silk is, and it makes it different from the chalk mineral paint, on here you do not want to, you don't want to use a mister bottle, or you don't want to mix this with water unless you're going to be using it in a sprayer. You can stir it up. Mine's pretty new. I'm going to shake it up. I had it stirred up earlier. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up here. I'm going to spin a little bit onto a plate so I don't dry out the paint in my bottle or in my jar here. That can make your finish kind of chunky. Totally fixable, but you know, I'm just gonna make sure that doesn't happen here. So it doesn't take a lot of this paint. You can see I've scooped out not very much. You'll be able to see how far that goes here. Yeah, you can definitely try to make sure you have a full view of this piece. So one of the things with this as well is you really want to use a good synthetic brush with the silk mineral paint. It is a self-leveling paint, so that's already going to lend itself to no brush strokes, but the key also is a good synthetic brush. I am going to use a round large, and that's mainly because of the legs here. I just have a lot of thin sections to paint. So you do want to keep, if you're familiar with the chalk mineral line, and you're used to painting with it, when you switch over to silk, one of the biggest things is you're going to use a little bit more paint on your brush than you normally would with the chalk mineral paint, and you're also going to keep your brush wet with more paint. So you can see I've just got a little bit on here, and that's because I'm doing these small sections. And I'm going to go ahead and move some of the paint off my brush to begin with. That's why I'm going in multiple directions, but I want to go quickly because once this starts to dry a little bit, I don't want to be still working it. So that's it. Super easy to apply and put on. Just want to make sure I don't have any drips on the inside there. Gonna just put a little bit more. Then I'm gonna go in a long stroke to smooth that out. When I'm wiping the paint off like this, that's just helping me get my coverage quickly. Again, very little paint on the brush, a little bit more than you would with the chalk paint, but still, you just don't want to overwork it. You're going to see some, like you might see some what will look like brush strokes. Leave it alone as it's starting to dry. Don't keep brushing over it and pulling it because, again, it is self-leveling. So those are going to work themselves out, and you'll see that as it dries. So I got quite a bit of paint up here by accident. I wasn't really paying attention. I just threw my brush on there. So to fix something like that, just pull that, keep going over it and pull that paint off back onto your brush. And then we'll just spread it out in these other areas. And that's it. I'm just going to wipe that line away. You know, when you're painting around a corner, it's easy to get little drips. I just always want to be watchful of that. Make sure you're getting those out. These drawers do not sit inside, so it's not as bad, but especially where you have a piece where your drawers are sitting inside, you want to keep this paint buildup on the edges to a minimum so that your drawers slide in and out nicely and your paint holds up. So we're just going to go ahead and quickly knock out these legs. And the way that I'm doing this again is I'm just kind of getting the paint off my brush and then one or a few long strokes to spread the paint out nice and evenly. So super easy, not a lot going on. Again, I use my fingers a lot to make sure that edge is good. You can run your brush down the side of it. That takes care of it as well. So it's really probably difficult to see on camera, but with this second coat being a slightly different color, with Serenity being a little bit darker than the Tide Pool. And by the way, this paint dries a little darker than it does, you know, from what you're seeing in the jar. But it's recommended for 2 coats for good coverage. So when you have 1 coat of this on here, there's some areas on here that are just barely see-through. You do have really good coverage with 1 coat. So on this second coat, this doesn't necessarily look like that layered country kind of look. It's more of a very layered, elegant look. It just lets that Tide Pool kind of peek through underneath just a little bit and give it a little bit more dimension. So again, just long strokes. Just get that coverage on. So here I'm going to use my brush because I can see that I had a little buildup on the edge and I want that nice and clean. Again, very little paint. Just going to tap it on and spread it out again. I'm so glad I used the wrong color on the second coat. It turned out so well. I know there's a couple people and you guys are awfully quiet. I don't see any comments. Say hey. Oh, I do see, you know what? Down here, I'm actually missing all the comments. I do see someone saying hello. So I'll go back and check if there's any questions, just in case I miss anything there. Let me just watch the time. to make sure that we can get the transfer in as well as the protecting on the top with the satin. All right, so I'm going to do these back legs. I did paint the back on this piece just because it was already finished out. So we'll go back there and do the second coat as well if there's enough time, because I'm just about done with this front section. So you can see I've literally only been on for 10 minutes right now. And, you know, so a project like this total might take you about 3 or 4 hours, just depending on what you're doing, which isn't bad for a complete furniture update. And this was a $25 piece, so, you know, you just can't beat that. I missed one leg over here. Let me get this right quick, and then we'll flip it around. And it's just the same process every time here. The main thing is I just don't want to overwork my paint. Use nice long strokes. If you feel your brush starting to dry out, one of the big tips is to just wet it down with more paint. Keep it moist with the paint so that that paint is gliding across. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this is not actually part of the layer. My paint is still drying, and so you have some areas that are dry, some that are still lighter because they're wet. So that's why you're seeing that little layered look. By the time we flip this back around, that'll be gone. Just want to make sure the paint on my hands does not get on the top of the table here. And I could have swung it around, but I'd rather just kind of, this is a relatively light table. I won't have to move the camera this way. And then I'm also going to pull you guys in so you can get a good view when we do this satin top coat. That's one of the questions that I get a lot, is, you know, how to just avoid any streaks in the top coats and make them nice and smooth. So we'll go ahead and paint on here for a little bit longer. We'll do this one big section here so you can kind of see how to go through. You know, of course you can put more paint on your brush. I've really kind of loaded it up this time. Just nice long strokes. Make sure you smooth it out well. Hopefully I'm not right in the front here. Sometimes it's kind of hard when you have to paint off to the side on camera. I'm not too concerned about this back section either, just because it's not going to be visible, but anytime it's a finished back, I do try to paint the back. If it's an unfinished back to begin with, I don't mess with it. Unless it's going to be in a spot, of course, where it's going to be seen. That's a little bit different, but this piece will, it'll be up against a wall, but, you know, if not, you can use it either way. So you can see that literally, just that back section, literally 1 minute. Let me go ahead and knock out. So you saw how much paint I put in this little plate at first. And you see I've almost painted one coat over this whole piece. So you can imagine how many pieces you can do with that 16 ounce of silk. All right. And by the way, I forgot to mention also in the description, I do have my affiliate link. So if you wanted to find your local retailer, you can actually click that affiliate link on the top left-hand side. It'll say, you know, find your local retailer. You can put your zip code in and find out where you can get the paint near you. You can order through the affiliate link as well. You can order through the affiliate link as well. I just lost my train of thought. I'm still kind of sick a little bit. I haven't quite totally recovered, and I've got some brain fog today going on. But like I said, you can order through the affiliate link as well if you don't have a local retailer or something like that. All right, so I do... I do just need a tiny bit more. This time, because I've got such a little area to finish here, I'm just going right out of the jar. I won't have it open long enough for it to dry out much at all. And I just want to get this section on this back leg here. We'll just get this done quickly. That side's not done, but I'll do that once I get off the live. I've got a little bit of excess paint, so I'm just taking it around the other side of this leg and smoothing it out, and perfect. So we've got this part done. Like I said, I'll go back and finish up. You can actually tell. So this is the paint still wet right here. You can see how light it is. There is a little bit of a shadow back here, but even outside of that, you can see how much darker it dries once you get it on. So I'm going to go ahead and close up the paint. We're going to move on to protecting the top up here. So for storing my brush, since I'm not able to wash it out right away, I'm actually going to go ahead and mist it down. This is the only time you really use water with silk. So I'm going to go ahead and mist it down, and I'm going to store it in a Ziploc bag. And you just try to get as much air out as you can. This will store, like, if you want to wait a couple hours. If you're going to leave it overnight or for, a couple days, then you do want to put it in the refrigerator. But this will keep your brush from drying out, and you'll be able to reuse it. So let me go ahead. I'm going to move this. I'm going to move you guys back or in a little bit so that you have a good view of the top of the table. And we will go ahead and get a coat of protectant on here. And we're viewing it from the back side here. I'm going to pop it around in a little bit, but actually, let me go ahead and turn it around so you can see, because this back line, of course, I wasn't really worried too much about the back section. It's really not viewable, but excuse me. So here we go. So again, you can see, if you did see the video on Monday on the Dixie Belle page, this is several layers of Up in Smoke, White Magic, just a tiny bit of Black Magic, and Tobacco Road. It's been applied multiple times to really layer it in, give it a lot of dimension. I did keep it thin and transparent because I wanted that wood grain to show through as well. So I did go ahead and put one coat of satin on here already. And we are going to go ahead and protect it with a second coat of satin now. And I'm going to be using an applicator pad. So Dixie Belle, we do carry these. They come in a little 2-pack like this. You can wash them out and reuse them. This one I just used this morning to put the first coat of protectant on, and I, of course, washed it out, and now we're going to reuse it. By the way, just to give you an idea, this is the plate I used. So this is the Tide Pool. That's what's layered under. And this is Serenity. I've got that layered over the Tide Pool. So with a satin clear coat, me just a minute. I've got to get a drink. My voice just is not holding. All right, there we go. Hopefully by next week, whenever I'm live, I'll be feeling better and my voice will be working again. All right, so we're gonna just put a little bit of satin, and actually that's probably too much. I'm probably gonna end up wasting a little bit of this. It does not take much at all. And anytime I'm applying protectant, including Gator Hide, on a flat surface, I really like to use an applicator pad. I feel like I have a lot more control. I'm able to smooth it out more quickly than with a brush. And especially with Gator Hide, you don't always have a lot of work time with a protectant. If you overwork it, that's when you're gonna see those streaks and everything else in there. So with this, I wanna make sure that I get a nice even application. Again, this is clear coat. It's satin clear coat, not the Gator Hide. Gator Hide is a little less work time, I think, in my opinion. But you can see I don't have very much on it. I'm going to wipe a little bit off, and then I'm going to pull it all the way down. So I really don't want to go over the same section. Usually with the clear coat, I can get away with it a little bit more. You just saw me do it 3 times there over the same section. That is generally my limit. Even if I see a spot that I may have missed, I don't want to go back over it again. I will fix it in the next pass. Because if you start overworking it, you're going to get certain areas that pull back, and that's when you get the streakies. So this is the same thing with Gator Hide. Gator Hide, I work a little bit less. I try to go no more than 2 passes over the same spot. So now I just came together, and now I've got the whole thing covered. So I'm just cleaning up my sides a little bit. And let me just make sure I got the front here as well. I can't really see it on camera, but I think I just got something on there. Let me look at the front here. Yeah, I got a little bit excessive there. All right, so yeah, that's perfect. So that's my second coat. Now, I'm gonna look at it at an angle because again, you can miss. Look how much protectant I have left. It does not take much of this product at all. And that literally probably took me 2 minutes to put on. So even though I'm putting 3 coats on to make sure that it's extremely well protected, it's a very quick process for each coat. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and spray. I'm gonna spray my pad out as well because I won't be able to wash that out until we're done here. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it just in the same bag here. And I'll take care of those once I'm off. So that's it. We're gonna let that dry. I will put one more clear coat on here. This was Voodoo Gel Stain. So I want it to be extra well protected. So I will do one more coat. And I will do it in the same way. And I can do that usually within about I like to say 2 hours. I think the jar says an hour or 2, but I like to be overly cautious, especially because I'm selling furniture. So I'm going to go ahead and push this back, and we are going to go ahead and work with the lace transfer. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and kind of spin you guys around because we're going to do it. I could do it on the drawers, but I think I'm actually going to go ahead and do it on the side first, just because of the amount of time we have left. I think I'm going to use a little wax on here as well, so we'll put the transfer on the side, and then if we have time, I'll wax that also. So I don't know if you can see, but really right here, might need to bring it in a little bit. Right here, you can see that Tide Pool kind of streaking out just gives it such nice dimension. Let's go ahead and put this transfer on first, and then I'll try to give you a close-up of that. In the meantime, I'm going to spin this so that you guys can see the side. Maybe around a little bit. Actually, I'm going to drop you down. I want to get you as close as possible so you can really kind of see the details. Please ignore my mess over here. This is a pretty thin, small area. So that should bring you in a little bit more. You should be able to see that pretty well. So I will tell you guys I've lost all comments if anyone is commenting. But I will go back and check those out. And you know, if you're seeing something on here that you think somebody could use or could use help with, definitely share this video so that they can hopefully experiment or learn something and use some of these products as well. So I've got the lace transfer here. This is kind of what it looks like. It does come in 4 sheets. In the tube. The sheets are numbered because they all go together if you want one consecutive pattern. So they are labeled 1 through 4. They also come with, let me see if I can get it out here without taking the whole transfer out. They also come with a set of directions, just tips and tricks here of how to use them. And then they also come with a little transfer stick. Mine has paint on it, but I have tons of these. I don't even think this one came out of that tube. But anyway, transfer stick. This is what you're going to rub on the transfer with. So I actually should have pre-cut this transfer, but I did not. So I'm going to measure this out really quick for this section. And we'll go ahead and get it cut and get it applied. So you want to make sure that your paint is good and dry. That's why I did this yesterday. Hold on just a second here. So I've got about 7 1/4 by 5. I only want it, the 5 is running up and down. So I like to, I mean, you could, you know, do this on the thing and use scissors to cut it out. I like to use my little cutting board because I can't cut a straight line to save my life. So it does need to be 7 1/2 wide. So I'm going to go ahead. Actually, I think I might be cutting it upside down. I never know which way. I've put this thing upside down, right side up. I've done it every different way, I think. So we're going to go this way. So 7 1/2 wide, or 7 1/4 wide. That's where we were at. And believe it or not, sometimes I still have a hard time cutting a straight line with this. All right, there we go. And I knew I was, let's see, yep, perfect. That actually worked really well. So what I am going to do is, I want it to run all the way up to the bottom of here. So I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors. Well, actually, no, I'm going to use my cutting thing. I'm going to cut this extra white strip straight off. Well, it's not a white strip, but clear strip. I'm going to cut that off so that it's going to be easy for me to lay the transfer. Okay. And then, let's see, what did I say? 5 inches is the height on it. Just another little tip. Well, it's 5 1/8. One other little tip. Measure out each section, because I have done, multiple other vendors will measure and create a pattern for one section, but furniture is never exactly the same. So a lot of times if you cut it using a pattern, it won't work on each section. So check each section individually. So this is going to be 5 1/8. So that's about right here. I'm not measuring. I mean, honestly, this isn't perfect, but I can get it close enough to work with it. So here we go. Oh, and see what I did? Yeah, this is what happens when you're not feeling good. I forgot to cut off this edge that has the overlap. And that's okay though, because what I can do, well, actually I'm going to cut up another piece. That's what we're going to do. So before I even start here, see, I need you guys to keep me straight. That's why I need comments. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off these side sections. Let's see. I wish I could see that here. Actually, let me use my cutter. Just making sure this is straight. And you know, I can piece those sections back together. Like, it's not a complete waste what I did there. I just don't want to do that right now. I'll do it once I keep all my scraps from these transfers. And a lot of times, I mean, you can create some beautiful artwork. You can put it on mirrors, canvases with these transfers. And so you can create that kind of that mixed, a mixed media piece with all your transfer scraps. So I'll keep that. If there comes a time where I have to put it together, though, I definitely can. All right, so now I'm at the right space. So I said 7 1/4 here. And I'm almost, I tell you what, normally I cut these before the live just because once I get on a live, sometimes I get in a hurry, and I don't do so well with my measurements. So hopefully you can see. Just make sure I'm on track here. I've got it just a tad bit wide. So let me see. Go. So that should take care of it. Yep. And then we've got, I'm going to measure twice, clearly. So 5 1/8. And we're going up and down this way. So 5 1/8 about. This one doesn't have 8ths on, or it's actually 1/16. And this is measuring, so I'm kind of winging it here. Hold on. Yep. And this is, all right, so we've got it this time. Let's see, right there, perfect. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, now that I've got it cut straight, that actually took me longer than probably all the other steps. Now that I've got it cut straight, we're just going to go ahead and peel it apart. So it comes in 2 sections. You've got your backing, and then you've got your piece with the design on it. When you peel it off, you don't want to touch the design on the side where it's sticky. If you do, that will ruin that section of the transfer. So you just want to be careful kind of where you stick your fingers. I will say the Dixie Belle transfers are most forgiving in that particular area. A lot of times once you set your transfer up, you cannot peel it back. But the Dixie Belle ones you can if you haven't applied a lot of pressure and pressed them down yet. So that's really fantastic. I love this lace transfer. Love it. So, going to see. Now, when you lay the transfer, especially when you're laying it somewhere in here, you want to make sure you don't have wrinkles. Those wrinkles will be noticeable. And I can already see that I've got it cut just slightly wide down here. I could have trimmed off a little bit more, but I was trying to get it just exact. So it is, I'm going to go from this corner and push down this way. You want to go in the same direction. I don't want to push this down and then push towards the middle, because that's going to create a wrinkle. So no matter what way you decide to push and push it down, stay in that one direction. Don't switch. So I'm just going to make sure that this side is laying down and flush there. And then I'm actually going to push it over. Make sure that it sticks down. See, I had a potential issue where I could have had a wrinkle there. So I let that bubble pop back up. And now I'm going to push it down out towards the edge. If I push it towards the middle, I will end up with a bubble or a wrinkle. A bubble or a wrinkle, actually. You can get both. So I can see, and mainly this is happening in this section because of the plastic, that hard plastic that I'm going to peel away. It's slightly big for the inside of here, but it's super easy to work around and make sure it doesn't cause you an issue. So one thing I do have in addition to the wooden stick is it's going to be easier on the transfers to use something that's thin and plastic to get into corners. So I do have a transfer tool here that I'm using that was carried by Dixie Belle quite some time ago. But I'm actually going to start out with this. You can also use, and I was going to use this just because that tool is no longer available, so you could see how you could do it. But I didn't want to put my debit or credit card. I was afraid that, you might be able to see my information or something, but you can use a debit or credit card to get into the corners too. You don't need this tool. And I think that's probably why it's no longer carried. But so I'm going to start by making sure that I press down this section up here that I'm most concerned with the wrinkle about. And then I'm going to go all the way across the top. And I'm applying quite a bit of pressure now because my goal isn't just to place it at this point. I've got it placed. I want to make it stick and release. I'm going to start rolling it down. So my direction right now in applying this transfer and getting these bubbles out is straight down. Like I said, I knew I was going to have a couple sections here, and I'm actually going to use my plastic transfer tool because I'm getting into the corner. And what I want to do is release that section. Perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got it pushed down and I've got it pretty well set, I'm going to start slowly peeling it back. So I've got this corner released. No bubbles, no wrinkles. We worked around that. And so you can do this a couple different ways. You can actually pull back while you rub. Or you can rub and then try to pull back. I think it's easier to pull back while you rub. If I was working in a larger space, and if you've seen any of my transfer videos before, which you can find on my Facebook page, just click that link there in the description. But I usually try to catch an air bubble and get this plastic to release pretty quickly and easily. But like I said, in this situation, because this is such a small area, I really don't have room to do it. I'll say the lace transfer, and the more detail your transfer has, or detailed sections, I guess, what I mean by that is if this was one whole picture and one whole piece without any of the actual transfer itself being cut out on the inside, those are easiest to release because you have the one sticking point, and once that area is stuck, you just pull back. So, if you have like a flower with big transfers or something like that, those release usually, and I say usually, every case isn't the same. There's a lot of little things that come into play. But those usually release a little easier. These more detailed transfers that have a lot of points at which they separate, I guess is the best way to put it. Those take a little bit more effort to put on. And I want to get rid of this now because plastic is not the best. It's good in corners and it's necessary in some cases, but this wooden stick puts the pressure on your transfer so much better. See how easy and how much faster it's releasing? The pressure just seems better when you're using the wooden stick. But in those corners, the wooden stick, it doesn't seem very thick, but that thickness makes a difference at it releasing in the corners. So I'm just going to get this on here. Another thing is when you're applying a transfer, you want to make sure that your paint is nice and dry. So when you see a live, sometimes you'll see somebody painting and then they'll dry it and then put the transfer on. In a situation like that, you want to make sure it's really dry, and you have to be a lot more careful because any moisture that gets stuck under the transfer can cause it to have an issue with sticking. So you do want to be careful there. So let's see here. We almost got this to a point of releasing. So I am going to switch back to the plastic because I've got to get this into the corner up here and make sure that's stuck as I'm releasing it. So, all right, there we go. And now I'm going to go back because this, like I said, is the easier way to release. It's just not the best in the corners. Like I said, you don't have to have that tool. A debit, credit card, anything like that will work. I just didn't want to put my information on the internet that way. So I'm just making sure. Let's see here. So I didn't have that quite released whenever I pulled back, but it's still in there nicely. So now that I've got the transfer on, I am going to go ahead and, normally I would use my finger, but sometimes if you have oils or I just put lotion on, it can cause an issue. So I'm going to burnish it. I'm just going to use this little plastic piece. Just want to put a little bit of pressure on it around the edges. Make sure that the transfer is nice and adhered to the painted surface. And you do put the transfer directly over paint. It can go over the chalk mineral paint. It can go over the silk paint. You can put protectants over it as well. I was hoping, I know we don't have enough time, but I did have the wax out just in case. I was thinking about maybe a grunge gray or a white wax on here I think would be really pretty. But let me go ahead and bring you in so you can kind of get a close-up of how this transfer looks. And I'll bring you around and try to show you that layer right quick before we pop off. So give me just a sec here. All right, so just to bring you in, you can kind of see how that looks there. Bring you around to the front. So right here, I think you can kind of see, yep, it's very, very subtle right here where you get that layering. And it looks, I mean, it looks gorgeous and, you know, in real life here. So, oh, sorry, you've got a view of my hand now. So anyway, here we go. So we've got everything done here. Again, you can share this. You can like my page. Just click on New Creations by Stacy in the description. Hopefully I'll be a little bit better the next time and a little more coherent. But thank you so much for hanging out. You guys take care. Have a good weekend.